All right, guys, welcome back to another Real Talk episode. Today we're going to be talking about something that annoys me, but I think it's necessary to actually have a discussion about it, and that's going to be the NFA, the National Firearms Act, and the ATF, which is the government agency in charge of enforcing that, so on and so forth. But before we get into all that, I just wanted to say a big shout out to every single one of you guys. I love you guys. Thank you so much for the support. I've reached recently 100,000 subscribers, so it has been such a humbling experience from when I started this channel about two and a half years ago to where I'm at today. I've improved myself as a shooter. Hopefully my content has improved as well, and I think it has, and you guys have reflected that. So if you guys aren't already, click that subscribe button. It means the world to me. Another way to support the channel is to use my discount code over at Brownells. It's RDB10, saves you 10% off at Brownells. A super thanks is a super helpful way to help me out. It is directly contributed to my YouTube funds, so that comes directly to me. So it's like Patreon right here on YouTube. So if you guys are blessed enough to donate to the super thanks, I'm very grateful for that. And then lastly, rangedaybro.com for any merch. And let's just talk about one of the most annoying things about the gun world, which is gun laws. And if you live in America, everyone thinks America is the Wild West. In fact, it's not. Many countries in Europe, you're able to get a suppressor the same day, and they're almost looked at as disposable. From what I've been told from some of my European buddies, like you can go buy them. They're not really built to super high standards like they are here, because here you buy a suppressor, you got to go through a bunch of hoops, pay an extortion fee, and then you got to wait like 9 to 16 months depending on how the ATF's feeling that year. And yeah, so they have to last forever because it takes so long to get them, and they're all serialized. So if it gets damaged, it's a huge process of shipping it back and yada yada. We're going to kind of dive into the nitty gritty, but the whole point of this video is to just discuss with you guys the absurdity, and to kind of help to educate people who are maybe not so educated on the NFA, the National Firearms Act, what it regulates, what it means. And by no means am I an expert on this, but I've been in the gun world long enough. I've watched enough videos from the Armed Scholar and others like them. You know, I support the companies like GOA, the nonprofits, like the Gun Owners of America, Firearms Policy Coalition, and I follow those things enough. I follow the news enough to know more than the average person. Let's just put it that way. I do my best, like everybody else out there, to comply. Again, I hate using that term with the laws that are on the book, but with the laws constantly changing, it's very hard to do that. And I think there's a reason behind that. And I guess we might as well just start there. So what is the National Firearms Act, and what was the point of it, I guess? So the National Firearms Act was put into place in 1934, and it was during Prohibition. And I believe the whole point of the National Firearms Act was to try to restrict people's ability, specifically gangsters like Al Capone, who were outgunning the police with full auto machine guns and whatnot, to try to make it harder for people and make it prohibitively expensive for people to be able to buy full auto machine guns, short barrel rifles, and suppressors. And they instituted a wait time. And I don't know if all that was the same back in 1934 or what the wait times were back then. I can barely keep up with the ATF wait times nowadays, but that was the reason it started, was to, I mean, the ATF, I forget which branch it was of the ATF, maybe it was in Arizona or something like that, recently put out a tweet that said, like, the point of the NFA back in 1934 and that $200 extortion fee that they charged was because $200 back in 1934 was prohibitively expensive for most people. So that was the whole point, was to make it harder, make you jump through more hoops, and make you pay this extortion fee that you may or may not be able to afford in order to own these items. And then, you know, you're not saying they're illegal, but you're making it so much harder for people to get them that people just throw their hands up and say, okay, it's not worth my time, or they just assume they're illegal because they have a lengthy process to get them, and a costly one. So that kind of went from what the NFA is into how it's kind of enforced nowadays. I think the ATF is probably most likely vastly understaffed, and I don't think they have the ability to enforce all these rules across the country. I don't think there's an ATF agent like creeping at your local range. Although, again, this is not legal advice, but I follow all these rules because I have things to lose. I think they know that. A lot of people who can afford to buy a suppressor and a $200 tax stamp have things to lose. And so criminals don't follow these laws, obviously. That's the nature of being a criminal. So criminals don't follow these laws, but the ATF is superiorly, they're super understaffed, and they should be completely abolished. So I'm all for that. But I think in an effort to make it so complex and so complicated and expensive for you to get these items, and the long wait that they have for these items, I think that's their way of telling people, hey, it's so hard. Do you really need one? Like, if people are like, I don't really need one. Like a regular person who might go to the range once every 6 months with his buddy or might own a pistol. The average gun owner is not an NFA item holder, right? The average gun owner in America doesn't own a suppressor. They don't own a short barrel rifle, or at least intentionally they might have one and not even realize it, because again, these rules are changing constantly. And with the pistol brace ruling that just happened, and then the judge put a nationwide injunction on that, so the ATF can enforce pistol braces or enforce throwing people in jail for owning a pistol brace. So it's gone back and forth, and this has happened so many times. And again, I think the whole point of this entire charade is so that people are so confused, and so people are just busy. People have lives, they have children, they have family, they have friends and jobs, and so they're so confused they don't have the time to invest in figuring out what is what's right, what's wrong, and just out of de facto, like, I don't want to commit a felony and be thrown in jail and charged $250,000 in fines. I'm just gonna not deal with it, right? My 16-inch AR is fine, my pistol is fine, my handgun is fine. I don't need to have a short barrel rifle. But in reality, these should be able to be purchased just like any other firearm. Suppressors used to be able to get overnight, and full auto should be legalized immediately. That's my humble opinion. I think it's the opinion of most guys in the Second Amendment community who take it seriously and who train and who want to be an asset for freedom. So with that being said, the NFA regulates suppressors, short barrel rifles, and machine guns. Now, the machine gun thing goes even a step further, because I think it was the Gun Control Act of 1986 where Reagan came in. Everyone loves Reagan, right? He's a Republican. He made machine guns illegal. So Reagan is dead to me. He's literally the worst president in American history just because of that one thing he did. And what it did was it grandfathered in all the machine guns that were already manufactured after that. So there were moving forward after 86, there's no more modern machine guns. You couldn't make a new machine gun unless you had an FFL SOT. And it was for testing purposes, for testing products, or for demoing to, guess who, federal or local law enforcement agencies. So the feds can have it, the cops can have it, come kick your door down, shoot your dog. The ATF uses their illegal guns on American citizens all the time in Waco, Ruby Ridge, so on and so forth. But you can't have it because you're not trustworthy. We can't trust you with this thing. We can't trust you with this 10.3-inch AR-15 unless you pay us a fee, wait 9 or 12 months, and then we'll give it to you, but we're going to have your name on a list and know exactly where you live and what you have at all times, so that if we need to, if you step out of line, we'll come back and we'll slap you on the back and throw you in jail and fucking ruin your life over a piece of plastic. So this is a great time, where did I put that thing at, to jump into the pistol brace thing. So this is an SBA 4 pistol brace. This is what they look like. A lot of you guys have probably seen them. These were designed, I forget who designed the original one. I think it might have been SIG actually, but SB Tactical really changed the game when it came to pistol braces. This allows people with disabilities who are, maybe have one arm or something like that, or have one strong arm rather. They can put this on their forearm, strap it around, and they could use their rifles with one arm. So that's what the idea behind the pistol brace. Obviously, this got widely adopted because people were like, oh, wait a minute, I don't have to do a stupid tax stamp, wait 12 months, or do a Form 1 and do a tax. Either way, you got to do a tax stamp for the SBR. So you could avoid the tax stamp, avoid the wait, and avoid being put on a list. Also, for AR pistol or AK pistol, you could travel across state lines into free states. Like if I wanted to go from Texas to Oklahoma or Texas to Louisiana, I could do that without notifying the ATF. Whereas if I want to take this thing anywhere outside of the state of Texas, I got to send them a letter and get approval before I do. Again, because you can't be trusted, right? So it's just so bonkers and silly to me that, our fathers gave up to the NFA, and then in '86, our parents, my parents were just getting to America, so I can't really blame my parents, but they were just like trying to become citizens at the time. But most likely most of you guys are Americans, and so I'll blame it on my parents. Their generation gave up a major step in the wrong direction. Then you had the assault weapons ban, which did absolutely nothing. And obviously that was lifted after, I think, 2000 or whenever Bill Clinton put that in place. It did absolutely nothing to curb crime. And after the assault weapons ban was lifted, then the AR-15 consumer market on the public side blew up. It absolutely exploded. Tons of companies were coming out because GWAT had started the global war on terror. So companies like Daniel Defense were popping up, Knights Armament. They were just really innovating, and also they were selling to the civilian market. So more civilians, I think, really started to get into firearms probably closer like to 2007, 2008, 2009. And 2009 I was a freshman in high school, so I was like playing airsoft. But anyways, that's when these things really started to take off. But the brace thing was was a great option for people who didn't want to deal with the NFA. So we've covered what the NFA is. We've covered how the ATF kind of convolutes the waters and has all kinds of rules. And at one point they had like this ranking system which would tell you, oh, does your pistol have a vertical grip on it? Does it have a magnified optic? Because a vertical grip would imply you're using a second hand. So why do you need the pistol brace? It should be an SBR. Are you shouldering it? Can you shoulder it? You can shoulder it. Maybe you can, maybe you can't. Okay, accidentally you can, but then, don't get caught, don't film yourself doing that. It's like, bro, what are we doing here? We're talking about a piece of plastic. This rifle, whether it has this on it or this on it, this stock, does the same exact thing, shoots the same exact bullet. Contrary to what politicians want you to believe, I mean, there was literally a politician, who was it? Maybe it was Joe Biden. It was Joe Biden, I think. He said, when you put this on the rifle, and don't quote me, I might be wrong. Someone let me know down in the comments what politician it was, what genius it was, that said when you put a pistol brace on a rifle, it actually changes the caliber of the rifle. It's incredible. I'm pretty sure it was Joe Biden. Sniffy Joe out there with another legendary remark showing how little he actually knows about firearms. So we've talked about how stupid the NFA is because, again, we're talking about a literal piece of plastic here. Even if, humor me here, even if I took this completely off and I just put the buffer tube up to my shoulder, yes, it would be uncomfortable, but this gun has the same lethality, has the same capabilities, would even be a little bit more compact, so it'd have less stuff back here. If their argument is too scary, it's too compact, and I could still shoot it. The only difference is I'd be more accurate with a stock. Why don't the ATF want you to be accurate when you're shooting? Do they want you to shoot an innocent bystander? If you're in a public area, this is my truck gun, there's a mass shooter, and I have an opportunity to stop a tragedy from happening. Do they want me to have to use just a buffer tube and have no cheek weld? Or is it about enforcing these unconstitutional rules, and when they come to collect, I don't know. I'm just speculating. So why would a government agency who preaches about protecting people want you to be less accurate with your rifle? Because that's what it does when you remove the stock, right? If you have a buffer tube, it's just going to be uncomfortable. You can still shoot it. Maybe I'll do a whole video of just running a gun, an SBR, without the stock on it, because it's literally the same exact gun. Takes everything else is the same, just missing one tiny component in the back that allows you to get some grip in your shoulder and give you somewhere to put your cheek right here. Okay, that's literally all it does. So the NFA is absolutely stupid, ridiculous. Now let's move on to, we talked about the pistol braces. Let's talk about more about suppressors. So suppressors, or silencers, as they're actually the actual patent from, I forget who it was who patented the silencers. Maxim, I believe his name was for a silencer. Now, Hollywood, just like most things with guns, just like with machine guns as well, Hollywood has painted this picture of mass murderers, criminals, drug lords, bank robbers using machine guns. Some of them that look like this. In Heat, there was a pretty cool, like, this has a little bit of a Heat look to it, which I like. Not exactly, but in Heat, those movies, Hollywood has projected these items, these completely legal to own items that are protected by the Second Amendment, as being these mass murder instruments that are only used by criminals. And so they're making full auto look like it's insane, like full auto. Oh my gosh, that's unbelievable. Like, we need to normalize full auto. We need to normalize suppressors. That's why I want to get as many people that I know and love into buying suppressors. Like, we shouldn't see somebody with a can at the range and be like, oh, check that, that's pretty cool, he's got a silencer. Like, no, it's just be like, hey, what are you running? Like, oh, okay, I got this one and this one. How do you like that one? I mean, that's how I talk to people at the range, because the ranges I go to typically have people that are pretty serious about their firearms and their training. But I digress. Hollywood has painted this picture of these things are completely, I mean, when you have a full auto switch, it just makes the gun more lethal. It's like, if you train, you know how to pull a trigger. Look at Jerry Mitchell, look at Lucas at T-Rex Arms. I'd argue Lucas is better on semi-auto. If he was fighting next to me, I'd want him with a semi-auto anyways. And maybe he would disagree, but it's not that it's any less lethal. Full auto should be completely legal, just like suppressors should be able to get them the same day. The NFA should be completely revoked. I mean, we should repeal the NFA 100%. That's my belief. So what makes this a two-stamp gun is that it's a short-barreled rifle with a suppressor on it. I had some other angle I was going to go down, but I completely forgot. It's hard to keep all these. I don't have a teleprompter, guys. This is just off the dome here. So let's talk about, okay, since I lost that thought, let's go into the main point I wanted to make here. If the ATF was concerned with protecting people and keeping NFA items out of the hands of prohibited persons, this is what I was going to say. Hollywood paints this picture of full auto machine guns and suppressors being this crazy dangerous thing, And so what do? They influence culture to create laws that make them illegal or very hard to get. They're not illegal. Let me just be very clear. It's completely legal to own a machine gun. You just have to get one that was manufactured before 1986, which means there's a dwindling supply and there is a ever growing, increasing demand. Okay, so if you buy a machine gun, if I wanted a trigger pack or like a drop-in auto sear for an M4, those little pieces of steel go for $20, $30, or $40,000. I don't even know what the price is up to these days because there's a limited number of them, and the demand, the people want them, so they're just naming their price. If you want a machine gun, a transferable machine gun is what we call it. A pre-86 machine gun is transferable machine gun. You're going to spend some dough. Like the cheapest ones are like Uzis, and they're like $10,000 or $12,000, or like a Mac 10 or something like that, like a cheap handheld. If you want a full auto MP5, they're upwards of $60,000 sometimes. So again, it just depends on the condition, this and that and the other, but they're very expensive. So the average everyday American cannot afford to own them. And that, I have a really big bone to pick with all the guys who own transferable machine guns. Maybe if you own a transferable machine gun, maybe you feel differently and maybe you could defend yourself in the comment section. But I believe that anyone who actually owns a transferable machine gun looks at it like an investment. I mean, I look at my guns like investments, right? So fair. But if you own a transferable machine gun, you have a financial interest in keeping the NFA in place and not making full auto legalized. Because if that were to happen, your $60,000 MP5 you just bought is worth no more than the one that HK can make tomorrow and sell to the American public that's brand new. So it's going to completely decimate that entire market, which there isn't. I know a lot of us are unplugged, and maybe I sound detached or unrelatable. I don't own any transferable machine guns, so I don't know. But I look at it like when I'm vouching and I'm speaking and preaching about, hey, we need to legalize machine guns, I'm thinking to myself, if I owned a full auto machine gun and I paid 60 grand for it, would I want that to happen? No, I definitely wouldn't want it to happen, because then there goes the value of that. I just lost all that money. So that is another kind of bone I have to pick. I don't really know. Honestly, I don't really give a shit. Like if I'm sorry, like if you're wealthy enough to buy a transferable machine gun, good on you. But at the same time, I'm not going to stop fighting for the rights of regular everyday Americans, because just forget minorities, just regular people, especially minorities, can't afford to own these things. But I got sidetracked once again. I'm going back to the original point, which was you're going to make these things illegal. Guess who's not going to follow the laws? The criminals. I've seen countless videos of like 14 and 15-year-olds in Chi-Town. I know I say it incorrectly on purpose. I know it's Chi-Town, guys, but I love when the comments go nuts. I've seen these kids literally in middle school, graduating from middle school with full auto Wish Glock switches on the back of their Glocks. And the ATF is not pounding on any doors, they're not burning down any buildings. And I don't want them to go murder 14-year-olds for having a Glock switch. But if you're gonna, don't bury your head in the sand and think, they know that they don't have the ability to enforce all these laws. So what do? They make the penalty for breaking these laws so insanely high. I mean, 10 years in prison, $250,000 in fines, and you're a felon. You lose all your gun rights, you lose your voting rights. So you're pretty much done for. Put a fork in you. But they're not enforcing it. They're just scaring people into complying. And so, obviously I have a YouTube channel here. Whatever you do in the privacy of your own home is your own business. I don't want you to come out here and don't incriminate yourself. But I am doing everything to the T of what the ATF says, which is complete bullshit. I'm paying their extortion fees. I'm waiting their wait times. And the main point of the video is a good time to get into that, which is if your goal is to protect people, if your goal is to keep prohibited persons from owning NFA items, then why not have either an approved or disapproved for the person, and that's it. It doesn't need to be per item. So let me kind of break it down in a more eloquent way. I own a bunch of suppressors. I don't want to put a number on. I have several suppressors, probably like 7 or 8 at this point. I'm waiting on a few more right now. Probably going to be 12 by the time I get those. So if I was approved one time and I stay in good standing, because you know that if the ATF, if you were to do anything, if I were to go out and break the law and become a prohibited person from owning NFA items, the ATF has a list of all the NFA items that I own. They're not supposed to have a list of all the firearms I own, because that's illegal for them to have a searchable database. But when you buy a gun from a gun store, you fill out a 4473, the gun store files that. They're legally required to keep it a paper file for 20 years, but the gun store can voluntarily give those to the ATF, or if they were to shut down their business before that 20 years is up, they have to deliver them to the ATF. So, or if it's a lazy gun store, they just keep records longer than that. I don't imagine they would do that, because that's pretty irresponsible of them. But again, people are lazy. So there's not really a searchable database although I think Congress caught the ATF with a searchable database. Like all they had to do was click filter. It was like in Excel, and they could just add a filter to the column, and then they could search by name or whatever. So I think they got caught red-handed. I don't know whatever came of that. Probably nothing, because politics in DC, nothing ever changes. But they shouldn't have a database of all the weapons I have. Now, obviously, I'm putting my shit on YouTube, so they could do a quick search of my channel and see most of the shit I have. But they're not supposed to. But they can legally, and the NFA gives them the right to keep a database of all the NFA items that I own. My suppressors, my short barrel rifles. And so if I were to go do something, break the law, and become a prohibited person, they would come and confiscate all those items. I mean, they would, 100%. So why not have me, even if I would, even indulge me here, even if I'm okay with saying, all right, which I'm not, the NFA needs to be abolished, and so does ATF, repealed rather, and the ATF needs to be abolished. I'm not okay with this. But if it really was about protecting people, then even if you made me screw myself and pay $200 tax stamp for each individual item, it should be an instant approval, because I'm already an NFA item owner. I'm already approved to own NFA items. There should not be an individual wait for every single item that you buy. So that's my whole argument. If it really was about protecting people, then if I'm already approved to own NFA items and you haven't come and confiscated them because I've done something to become non-approved or disapproved by the state, then why not let me go buy a suppressor and walk out with it the same day? I already have suppressors at home. I already have an SBR at home. Why can't I just do a Form 1? I'll pay your stupid tax, but why can't I just put my stock on my gun right now? This is the point I'm trying to prove. The NFA is so dumb, and the ATF just hides behind the bureaucracy of the government. It's like, oh, we're short-staffed. Why is it taking 12 months to get a Form 4? It's like a 3-page form. Like, it's not like they're doing, I know they're doing a lot of them, but again, the whole point I'm trying to prove is it should be completely, even if you're gonna screw us, don't screw us and make us wait for 12 months, because there's nothing worse than buying a suppressor for $1,000, paying the ATF their bullshit extortion tax, $200, and then having to wait with zero updates whatsoever. I'm just like sitting here twiddling my thumbs, wondering when my can's gonna come in, or when my form's gonna come in so I can go pick up my can, or my Form 1's gonna come back so I can finally slap a stock on that 6-spear and go review it, because nobody's shooting a gun without a stock, unless you're in a music video maybe. But it's not about that. It's about keeping the tools that you need to defend freedom from tyranny, foreign or domestic, out of your hands, because if you have them, if you know how to use them, then you're a threat to their power. There it is. That's the whole summary of this video. It can be summarized in that one clip. They don't want you to have it because they want to have the power over you. They want to be able to outgun you. They want to have the better equipment. And thank God for America. I mean, thank God we still live in this country where you can still get these items, although they make you jump through these bullshit hoops. So I'm still grateful. I know I just did a pretty big gripe session about the whole NFA, but that's kind of what this whole thing is about. It's about pointing out how stupid it is. Maybe you could send this to one of your buddies who's liberal or who's a gun guy, but still agrees with, well, I still agree with common sense gun measures. Like, no, dude. You give them an inch, they're going to take a mile. It's always getting abused. They're always taking more and more and more. It's time we take a stand and start to push back and regain our rights. It's no longer an option to just take or to stay where we're at, or even compromise slightly in the forward direction. We need to go backwards and get the 86 GCA repealed, as well as the NFA, and just restore the Second Amendment to what it was intended as. It's clear as day. It's clear as day. To prevent tyranny, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. It was as clear as day. And I'm not even, there's a whole other topic of discussion for people who want to talk about definitions back in 1776, or I think it was 1794 actually, when the Second Amendment was written. They meant everything. They meant firearms, they meant cannons, they meant warships, because the people owned all that back then as well. So technology evolves. They knew that. It was rapidly evolving during their lifetime as well. So, but yeah, that's the whole end of it. I guess if you could take one thing away from this video, it's to help me and help other like-minded, freedom lovers spread the word of the Second Amendment, and specifically NFA items. I know we have to jump through these hoops to get them today, but the more we normalize these things, the more suppressors that people see on the range, the more you talk about them, the more you have them, the more you buy them, and the money doesn't lie either. These companies that make these suppressors, that make the short barrel rifles, make these firearms, they're investing in production of these items as well. So you're showing them by buying them that there is a demand for that, and you vote with your dollars a lot of the time too. So let's try to destigmatize machine guns. Let's try to destigmatize suppressors. I know machine guns are really hard, but you can get an FFL SOT. I don't want to do that because I don't want to have to be audited by the ATF whenever they want, because again, I speak my mind on here about how I feel about them. And I'm not wishing ill will on any individual person that works for the ATF, but if you're working for the ATF, like, you got to know deep down in your gut you're violating your oath to the Constitution. Like, you got to feel that. I mean, I don't know. There's no way they're not seeing and hearing this kind of stuff throughout the community, the Second Amendment community, and throughout the country. I don't know a federal agency that's hated more. Maybe the FBI, but they're the parent organization of the ATF. The FBI, maybe the CIA. I don't really know. But all I'm saying is we need to destigmatize these things. We need to let regular people see them. They're not scary. Like, this suppressor is just a literal piece of steel with some baffles in it. It's not making the gun silent. It's very minimally reducing the sound of it so that's hearing safe, and so that you're not blowing out everybody's ears next to you at the range, especially on a 10.3 inch like this. So it's a safety device. And machine guns are the same. Like, people say machine guns are just spray and pray. Like, you can very much control the burst on a machine gun to get it within a man-sized target at 50 yards. You can do full auto bursts. It's very controllable, especially on an AR-15. Maybe with a SCAR 17, it's a little bit more unwieldy with a 308, but still, it doesn't matter. The Second Amendment was intended to protect all firearms that are in common use by our military. If our military has it, we should be able to have it. Well, range day, bro, should we be able to have a tank? Yes. I mean, I believe we should have a tank. I believe we should have everything, because an armed society is a polite society. You'll never know that better than if you live in Texas. Everybody you meet at the range are the nicest people you'll ever meet, and everybody's got a gun on their hip, dude. It's wild. You'd think it'd be the opposite, but that is the moral of the story. I don't want to drag this out longer than it needs to be. You guys know how I feel about the NFA. It needs to be repealed. The ATF needs to be abolished, and there's no reason for them. There's no reason to have these agencies involved in ruining regular people's lives who are just trying to practice their fundamental God-given rights. So that's all I'll say about it, guys. One more time, thank you so much for helping me get to 100,000 subscribers. I am super grateful and humbled by all the support that I've gotten from you guys. Thank you so much, each and every single one of you guys. I love you guys. If you want to support the channel further, a super thanks is an awesome way to do so. Liking, commenting, subscribing, especially share this video with somebody who maybe doesn't understand these rules, these laws. Maybe it can help them at least start to approach the conversation or to start to open their mind a little bit. And then we got Brownell's discount code RDB10 for 10% off $150 or more over at Brownell's. Some exclusions apply with some products, but most of the things you'll need you can get with that 10% off. And then lastly, rangeabro.com for any merch, guys. All right, lastly, love you guys. Have a great day.